Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a few weeks since I've been able to say it, but I'm here back again to say that Flat Out Thursdays is back. We're going to mute the game audio just intermittently for a second here, folks. You may be able to hear the cars, some of the background as we go to Daytona tonight. But it's good to see you all, it's good to be here, and it's good to have a little bit of racing fun today. So, unfortunately, it is a bit of a bittersweet one, as this is the last round of Season 5. Now, this does mean that we will get to see a champion be crowned. We'll get to see the racers give it their all in the final stint of the competition, and we'll get to see some crucial championship positions be decided. Will it be Martin Lewis who takes top honours in the LMP2 championship in the GT3? Will it be Mark Gellert, or is he going to be facing some competition from the likes of Lynch? Let's see how it all plays out. But it is going to be, as you briefly saw on screen before we cut back to the cover card, it's just going to be going into the driver's briefing now, and then we will have a 10-minute qualifying shootout around the Daytona circuit. Now, I do want to say, this is one of the new DLC tracks. So this is a track that is a bit alien to a lot of people, and it is a little bit alien to a lot of the drivers today. Now, granted, they would have had some practice going in, and they being one of the new hot tracks, there would have been a lot of seat time very early on. But what I will say is that it doesn't have the tried and true, the weathered experience that we have seen from the other tracks. You haven't had as much seat time, you haven't had as much room to work with it, to grow with it, and to find the nuances of the racetrack. So that's where we're going to see our drivers really have to learn quite quickly what Daytona feels like as a race course. And that isn't actually what the driving line looks like. I think there's a couple of minor hiccups with the pathing, but regardless, it's going to be a good race today. I'm certainly looking forward to it, folks, and we are going to have some fun for sure. Worth a mention as well to all of the parties that made it possible. So it's the last round of the season. We really do have to give the nod to everything. In particular, LMU Broadcast Control, now version 0.8.0 we're running today. So even more smoothing out in the background, more new features, more bugs being fixed. Every single week it feels like there's a new patch, but the work that's gone into the overlay is absolutely insane. So, of course, being pioneered here on ADRR. But if you want to try it for yourself, you want to head over to broadcastcontrol.uk and get yourself on that version. There is a beta branch as well for those who are going that little extra mile, want to test out some new features and do support the project, but is a great tool for any broadcaster or any league on the market. Sim Foundry as well, if you want to get a bit of improvement on your sim racing content and experience. For Assetto Corsa in particular, there's basically a massive repository. simfoundry.gg is where you want to go. And finally, at risk of tooting our horn a little bit too much, say the team at Driveline always enjoy bringing these broadcasts to life. So you can visit our website, drivelinemedia.co.uk, or you can just find us on Discord, as there is plenty of ways to get in contact. You can file a form through our website, or just contact directly if we're in a mutual server. Chances are we are. Sapatron on Twitter and Discord are sort of the main places to go. But with all that being said, folks, let's actually go trackside and let's see what our racers have to show for us today. And as we get a bit of an overhead view, this is going to be what the track looks like. Everyone is currently in the pits for the most part. We do have a couple of drivers who are out on track, but this is the field in full. There is the track map in full as well. So last couple of minutes of the driver's briefing, and then we will be getting in, as mentioned, to our qualifying shootout before a 50-minute race. Is looking nice, bright and sunny here at the Daytona road course. And being part of that new DLC, as mentioned, does give it a little bit of an excitement factor, as I personally am feeling very much excited to see how these drivers handle the new course. We'll be joining our racers momentarily, but at least in the interim, You can see a few drivers out on track. Initial times coming out from some of the cars. We're looking at 134s for the LMP2 cars and 147s for the GT3s. A bit of an interesting spread between the cars, but remember, it is practice. It's not really fully representative of the pace, and we're not going to be seeing that until qualifying fully comes to the fore. How this is going to work, we're going to be following on with the LMP2 cars first. We'll be setting a bit of a benchmark with them, and then we'll circle back over to the GT3 racers as well. As drivers briefing has just concluded, we have the confirmation as everyone moves around the Discord, which you can join, by the way, if you want to get involved in future seasons and future projects here with ADRR, of course. Session is coming to a swift close, and with that, we will be seeing the field make a swift appearance on the course in due time. The last couple of cars coming to a halt in time for the session to officially change over. You should see the timing tower get quickly updated, and then we'll be on board with our LMP2 racers making their way to the start-finish line after a brief outlap. Really unique pit lane as well, worth mentioning. The Daytona road course is one of my favorites. I know that it's very new, and it's very easy to say that we can... Let me start this sentence again. I know it's very easy to say that with new tracks and with new content, you can go, oh, yes, this one's my favorite because it's shiny and new. But no, genuinely, I think that this layout does produce a lot of excitement. I have a lot of fondness for it. And I think that the drivers are going to have a good time out on the field. So this is where the session officially starts now. Qualifying is here, and the racers are going to be making a swift appearance onto the track in due course. This is where it gets a little bit scary for some, but we are going to be taking a bit of a look at some of the racers that are out there today, and making sure that we highlight those that are in contention for some good fights here on the course. Right now we're on board with one of the first drivers to get out just alongside, although they have got private track sessions, so they're not going to interfere with each other on the course. We have Dov Myers and Angela Scotti. Now, Dov Myers is an interesting one because Dov is technically going to be fighting for second place. You've got Aaron Christiansen in third place with 131 points, so a single point ahead of Dov right here, and then a further 9 points away from that, you have Lindell Harry. So there is certainly an opportunity for championship shake-ups. We have Christensen on the track right now as we speak. Just keeping an eye out as well for the other drivers. We have not seen, as of this point, Lindell head on to the race course, which means that either he is going to be taking a bit of a late bloomer approach to the race, or he is going to not be joining us, and that really is going to throw a spanner in the works for this championship order. The LMP2s are making their way through now, and then we will switch tack to go over the GT3s when they catch up. Making our way through, and this is probably one of my favourite bits of the track in terms of personality, as we make our way on to the line proper. It's that approach into the first and second corners. Now, that has a lot of Sebring vibes, for one, And that immediately gets brownie points in my mind. But more importantly, it's such a skill check to the rest of your lap and how you get into the inward section of the course. That and the bus stop, they are the two major skill checks in terms of confidence in your car and your ability to put pressure down on your opponents on the race course. This is going to be a significant part of testing these drivers here. We see a little bit of a wider run from Christensen there. He's not quite tight to the apex, but he has some good exit speed. He's got a purple Sector 1. We'll see if he keeps that trend into Sector 2 as he now rejoins the oval, and he's going to prime himself for the fastest game of chicken on the racing calendar, that being the bus stop chicane. And, a little bit of a network moment there for a brief moment. Martin Lewis has quickly taken the purple Sector crown with a 25.408 for Sector 1. Let's see how Sector 2 pans out here. So down on the brakes, heavy, sweeping through. Careful of those curbs. Those sausage curbs can be deadly. Destabilize your car on the exit, but Christensen handles it nicely. Coming through to the final left-hander. That banking, you can see, generating all manner of sparks on the undertray of that LMP2 car. The downforce really forcing it in. When you combine with the camber, the amount of lateral grip that you can generate in these cars is something else. But Christensen is going to get our fastest time so far. Let's see how quickly he gets dethroned, if he does. But it's a 37.385. Another driver worth keeping an eye on is Martin Lewis. He did get some very good sector times. In fact, he's purple, Sector 1 and 2. Can he make it a triple header? Getting his way home now. Final corner, final curve. And it's going to be a loss of Sector 1, but he holds on. And it keeps a very neat and tidy 37.136. Switching over to the GT3s now. And we'll be able to see everyone going full push, as the timing is looking like a 48.090, the lead from Fabian Sodka. Now, Fabian is, in terms of the championship, he's not really in the same contention, but he does still have a chance to get into the top 10 with a good result here tonight. If qualifying's anything to go by, he might have some good chances, but Nathan Clark has just usurped him here, and Clark is really going to be trying to make the most of this new track. Really the one to look out for, though, in terms of championship order, it's going to be Mark Geller in the Porsche. He currently stands top of the championship with 166 points, tailing against Connor Lynch by 7. Mihai Visan has just come through one of the last LMP2s, I think, on the track that needed to set a time still. So that is going to be a bit of a improvement point for him, as it is a 142, but it's still a time on the board. That's put him on the table, and that keeps him out of trouble in terms of positions on the starting grid. That does get him out of some kind of trouble. But here is Geller. We're keeping an eye on for just a moment here. We are over the halfway point of qualifying, so things are going to be looking pretty swift. As I say, nicely executed. It's all about taking those smooth lines through the oval sections of the course, because even just the slightest wobble can give you a big amount of trouble. Geller comes across the line, second place. He's only just behind Fabian Sodka, about a 10th away. Gets the best third sector, but he can't match it over the rest. Becky Eli Clark coming through in a 5th position spot. Let's check over with some of the LMP2s now. Let's switch tacks over there. Here's Denise Pope, making their way out onto the oval section, ready to tackle the bus stop. Currently in the middle of the standings with a P5, a 37.0, but it's looking good in terms of improvement on Sector 1. They can keep that momentum. They might get a chance to push into the territory of Bernhard Bendel. Bus stop taking it nicely. Very aggressive on the curbs on the exit there. Bit of time lost, not as much time gained throughout Sector 2. Dov Myers getting a new fastest with a 34.363. So you can tell the LMP2 drivers really finding their groove. They're already chomping at the best times and the pole positions by a factor of tenths and seconds rather than just simply milliseconds here. He's getting a new fastest 37.038, I believe, but it's all stories at the top as Martin Lewis continues to push. 34.448 is not enough to dethrone Dov just yet, but it is still a pretty strong showing thus far. Now, we do have 4 drivers who I don't believe are going to be joining us on the track if the telemetry is anything to go by. Osborne, Miser, Bilek, and Harry all not joining, so that's 3 LMP2s and 1 GT3. Checking over on some of the GT3s as we'll get their timing board back up. That is not at the line. Never mind, we were just briefly experiencing a teleportation to the Shadow Realm. Rebecca Eli Clark coming through in a P4 spot. Pedro M. Costa making a big jump up the order as well. Meanwhile, Dov is going to be firing their way through and hopefully getting an even faster time here as you have a really good run coming through. Sector 1 and 2 fully purple. Sector 3 is purple as well. That time goes even faster. 1:34.135. Dov Myers is the car to beat around Daytona. There we are running the ELMS spec LMP2s, the Oricas, but that's not going to be any issue for the drivers, it seems. Looks like they are very much glued down, very stuck together. And we do see some drivers who are going to call it time. Dave Beckett, you see, drawing to a stop at the end of his lap here. Vladislav is currently on a lap and in the infield section. They've got a bit of an interesting position as they were right on the tail of Nathan Clark in the championship. They were on the cusp of the podium, but they got hit with a 10-point penalty, which is going to influence their results. Not to mention a did not start from last time. So there is going to be a war, bit of an uphill battle for Vladislav as we get into this final round. They have got the pace. They have shown that consistently. Out of the 3 races they start, they've never finished outside of the top 5. And even got a win, I believe, on round 4. So that is going to be a stamp of pedigree. But they just need to keep that performance here and keep that top form heading into this finale. Looking good on the timing so far, shaving considerable time through sectors 1 and 2. They keep this up, they will be within striking distance of the top 3. Just needs to nail these final ovals corners. Coming up to the line, 1:46 to beat. It's a 46.4 coming from Vladislav. That is P3. He makes his way through for another attempt. Sodka, how are we getting on here as he just comes out of the infield and into the fire? Another shot at the top pole position time. He has got a purple sector 1, like just under a 1/10 of a second. So I see no reason why he can't push that a little bit further here. Can't psych himself out, can't afford to. Coming up to the bus stop, nailing the braking point. So just after the line there, you jump on the brakes. It's a 10th down in sector 2 in the best way possible. Very aggressive lines again through the bus stop chicane. You have to almost take it a bit sharp. You can't afford to leave anything left on the table. So here we go, the number 175 rolling his way through. There's a very sharp livery as well. Appropriately painted Porsche. We've got the ADRR livery, a 45.472. Absolute masterwork of a lap there from Fabian. And a beautiful finish to his session. As the timer comes to a close, it is curtain call for the drivers here, and we will in due time go through everyone. All of the LMP2s have finished their laps in comfortable fashion just ahead of us, but it's a couple of last minute GT3s who need to do so. Vladislav is going to go for another last push attempt. See if they can just scrape a little bit more time out of that barrel. Comes up to the line, and it is going to be an improvement. 46.154 there. And that is time. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is a very impressive result. And we are going to be making sure that we capture all of that in full. But let's have a look at those quali results here today. There we go. Got it working. Apologies. So, first off, taking a look at our LMP2 cars, it's going to be Dov Myers with a very impressive showing out at the start of things today. It's going to be a very difficult time to beat with about a tenth and a half away. It's going to be Adrian Christensen in second place. Martin Lewis is our championship leader, but he only musters a third place spot in our qualifying today, being 3/10 down from our session leader. Barring that, it's an entire second's worth of difference before you get to the rest of the field, and that's going to comprise of Angela Scotti, Bernard Bendel, Kevin Goyen, Denise Pope, Lawrence Barrett, Mihai Visan, and Aldin Bolic. We did not see Tom Osborne, Alexander Bielak, or Lindell Harry join us on the track today. I regret to inform you all. Going over to the GT3 side of the standings then, and it's Fabian who has continued to impress throughout tonight's session in qualifying with a very strong result. A 45.472 over a half-second clear of next closest driver, Mark Gellert, in second place, and then Vladislav Bobzik in third. Looking over to the rest of the field, another half-second away, we have Becky Eli Clark, Nathan Clark, Madame Mims Mann, Daniel Ryan, Pedro M. Costa, Dave Beckett, Jeff Fleischman. And moving to our second half of the GT3 grid, we have Cal Mason, Gareth Ronda, Adam Burks, Phil Doody, Peter Zabo, Andy Anderson, Roger Clark, and Steve Worrell to finish, with David Miser not making it to the course today. And so, with that being decided, folks, this is going to be a heck of a finale. As we get ourselves over to the races, you can see Christensen, and oh, that is a bit of an oddity there. So we went to the capture and the set, so we'll have to see if it self-corrects momentarily. But we can see Scotty, Bendel, Goyen, and Pope marking their way through. There's a bit of a hiccup because I think it has placed one of the drivers above everyone else. We're just waiting for a couple of drivers to get back out on track, but you can see all of the LMP2 cars who are lined up ready to go today just before the bus stop chicane. And you can also see that there, just the line behind, is going to be the GT3s helmed by Fabian, as everyone is getting themselves ready to go racing. Everyone populating the track, and then before long, 15 seconds to go, we will be going away. So this is a good chance. If anyone is supporting any particular drivers out there tonight, now is your chance to make it known. You're going to keep your eyes on GT3? Are you going to be looking at the field in full, or are you going to be on the LMP2 sides? Are you going to be trained firmly on seeing who the championship's going to be, or are you keeping an eye on underdogs? Let us know. But here we are. We're going to see side by side here. Here is everyone in full as they roll their way down. And I gotta say, it's a pretty stacked grid today, folks. Pretty stacked indeed. I'm looking forward to it. I am very much excited to see how our races fare. Take a little bit of a parameter adjustment. There we have it. So, folks, it has been a heck of a season. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here on the broadcast with you and bringing this championship with you together. And while this is not the end, it's certainly going to be a heck of a finale. The last round of Flat Out Thursday Season 5 is finally upon us. And trust me, while I would love to do this every Thursday ad nauseum, in order for the start and the middle to matter, there must be an end. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, for the final time, the track is hot. Here at Daytona for round 6 of ADRR's top racing series so far. let's have it. It's a beautiful day in Daytona. It's a great day for some racing. And as we cross the line, the track is hot, and away we go. We have a drive-through coming in immediately for Christensen. He is going to get hit with a early jump, but that's not going to stop the rest of the field from giving it their absolute best. It's a fight at the very top as the three at the very sharp edge of things. Christensen is going to be dropping down. Martin Lewis is going to get himself involved here. It's going to be quite the challenge for all drivers involved at the very top here. Christensen having a wobble and veering himself off to the side, allowing Martin Lewis to get a bite into second place here. It's a very risky play to go for moves in this section of the course, and on lap 1 no less, but that's not going to stop the drivers from trying. You've got many more who are trying to give it a proper college go. And look at that, down the inside, complete miscalculation. Oh, lots of dirt and smoke being kicked up. I think that was a bit of a network moment. I had my heart in my chest there, but Gareth Ronda looks to be seriously struggling. Multiple contacts with other cars coming through. You have a little bit of glitchiness coming in from, it looks like, Pedro Costa. And his BMW is jittering ever so slightly across the course, and that is lethal when you have close quarter wheel-to-wheel racing like this. You even see drag races a little bit further up. Here's Nathan Clark, for example. He is going to be hot on the heels. Mark Gellert, Vladislav Bobzik going for a bit of a challenge as they go through the bus stop chicane. Vladislav has to take a compromised line, and that is going to leave him right open to attack. A little bit further back, you see the exact same thing. We jump aboard with the helicopter. That queue has to set itself out. You see Pedro Costa, looks like he missed the chicane, has to rejoin at the very back of the grid here, and it's not looking too comfortable for him so far. Back to the LMP2s as we get onto the second lap. Doc Myers has had a chance to get a bit of a breakaway, and he's pulled about a second's worth of gap. Christensen, of course, has to have that drive-through penalty served at some point soon, otherwise there will be more dire consequences. Here we are, we have a bit of a squabble here, and okay, a little bit of hiccups on some of the network side of things. Do apologise for that, folks. A little bit of a questionable network with the server tonight. Everything is bulletproof stable, to be clear, on the network connection this side on the stream. I think there's just a little bit of a server connection hiccup here and there. We're trying to keep an eye on it and resolve it in the background where possible. You can see right here there is going to be Goyen and Pope on the tail. We have Lawrence Barrett as well looking for a bit of a challenge, but something has happened to Gareth Ronda. It looks like he is completely off the side of the field. It is Corvette, has to rejoin halfway through the inboard section. Looking too hot for him there, so Ronda is going to be in a hefty bit of trouble. So we're just going to wind the clocks back, see a little bit of what happened. Looks like there was a bit of a squeeze between himself and whoa, something went wrong, completely wrong there. The number 23 darting, veering to the left side as he goes off. You can see that was a bit of perspective, using the overtake to try and get a bit of an insight. And we'll also wind the clocks back shortly to see what happened with Pedro Costa, as that would have been, of course, a major moment for him there too. But Eli Clark is going to be veering off, and it looks like they missed the bus stop chicane or overshot the bus stop, and that's going to leave them in a little bit of a sticky situation here, as that will be a lot of pressure immediately being placed on the Aston Martin to try and recover. We're just going to check back in and see what happened with Costa as well. You can see they were side by side earlier with Ronda. This is on the previous laps. Taking a bit of a wind back to see what happens between the two. So looks like connection issue has propagated into contact, and that is the worst case scenario when you get into something like that. That is the worst thing that you could possibly have happen, is connection issues propagate into collisions that are one side. You can see there was no effect on Ronda from that. No effect whatsoever. It was purely, I believe, due to the differing connections. Seems to be a client-side collision, if nothing else. Here is Christensen going for a hard push against Martin Lewis, going into the bus stop chicane. Very aggressive run going in there. And considering he has the drive-through penalty, the question is when he's going to take it. That's going to be a bit of a high-risk situation here. And that is going to be a bit of a problem for himself right now. Okay, there is going to be stressed pretty high. And that is going to be a bit of a challenge for our drivers to try and compensate for overcome. There is going to be Christensen taking his required drive-through penalty, and that is going to leave him in the sticks just a little bit. But here is Daniel Ryan, who is on the chase as we speak, as Bobzik currently leads him on. Andy Anderson is also going to be having a bit of a major, well, is going to have a major problem. We're going to wind the clocks back. Here is Andy Anderson. So we have a local yellow being called. And let's see exactly what happened. And oh, massive veer off and hard slam into the tyre wall. The number 77 is going to be, I imagine, limping their way back to the side of the track. And no, that is going to be officially confirmed. DNF, ladies and gentlemen, our first DNF of the session, courtesy of Andy Anderson, following their collision into the inside of the bus stop chicane. Shame to see it, but that is an unfortunate reality of racing. Sometimes one mistake is all it takes to throw you completely out the deep end. You can see hard racing, a bit of a challenge coming through. There's Bernard on the back of Angela there, briefly trying to sneak a bit of a look, sneak a little bit of a challenge into the back of their opponent there. Let's see how our field handles this situation. And let's see what comes out, Bernard, as it looks like they're going to be going for a challenge around the outside. And whoop. Yep, definitely a bit of a challenge around the outside there. Aggressive racing for sure. But one or two moves could be all that it takes to secure you a position. Now, if I was any of the racers on here, I would personally be looking to maybe take a bit more of a conservative approach, at least with the initial laps, and then start to up the ante, take a little bit more aggression. But you can stand to benefit a lot if you're willing to take that risk. Take, for example, Daniel Ryan. He's been on the back of Ladislaw for a little bit now, and he's finally going to pull the trigger going into turns 1 and 2. You can see arcing his way very nicely ahead of the BMW there and executing a near perfect... Oh, no! Just losing the rear, bit of lift-off oversteer, I fear, as we go through that chicane. They're almost perfect overtake, but just dropping those back tyres the last possible second. Massive, massive shame there. Is going to have to recover quickly. Manages to recover into P8 at the very least, but I also have concerns that they have some front-end damage. That will be a big splodge on an otherwise pretty smooth race thus far. A shame to be sure, folks. A shame to be sure. Because I, for one, was looking forward to those two jousting and going back and forth for a significant chunk of this race. And to not have that happen is, yeah, it is deeply a shame. It is a deep shame. We'll see the back and forth between Bernard and Angela here. The aggression cannot be understated. They're very impressed in the field thus far. And for the most part have kept it tidy and kept it smooth. So really it comes down to who is willing to keep that pressure and keep that focus alive for long enough. Check back periodically with some of the others. It looks like we've got a bit of a three-way battle. Potentially could be brewing. You see, right now we're going to jump on board with Peter Szabo. He goes to the inside right now. That is going to be Roger Clark on the defensive there. Is going to actually back out of the move, and I think that might have been a wise decision. I think the door was rapidly closing on them, as they didn't really get much of a chance to attack before the inboard section, the infield section of the track has started to close in. See a few more drivers here and there. They go for a couple of challenges. We will see that Bernard and Angela are actually having a bit of a back and forth. Looks like the two have traded positions under our noses. So let's check back in with them, see how they're doing. Angela, after a good defense for a little while, has yielded key positions. See Christensen, despite the drive-through penalty they were handed and had to serve, that's not going to deter them in terms of pace. They continue to push extremely hard. Looks like Bernard has spun, though, unfortunately spun out on the exit of the infield. So let's see what exactly happened there. So they were pushing and looks like, yep, just a classic case, bit too much loud pedal, kick the rear out, and that's all that's needed sometimes. So waiting for a safe opportunity to rotate the car around, get themselves back on the right direction, but there you have it, folks, down to P8. As there are a few more yellow flag situations, and we just want to... I can't help but think back to this. Of course, this is a replay. We saw it as directly as we could at the time, but I just... Whoa, okay, yeah. I can't help but feel bad for Daniel Ryan. It is a real shame to have a situation like that transpire, and you can see as well here that another mistake has come out for Bernard. So he has dropped all the way behind Denise and Aaron Christensen now as well. Not looking too hot here for the number 830. Will we be seeing potentially the precursor to our second retirement? I hope not. I really hope not. And as we say that, looks like a bit of a joust between Madame Mimsman and Jeff Fleischman. The two of them coming in very hot out of the infield and continuing such close proximity heading into the bus stop. Rotate through. Looks like the Ferrari got a bit of a better exit out of there. Looking good from the Ferrari, less so from the Aston. Not quite able to hold the same proximity. Looks like Bernard has gone into the pits. Nathan is actually getting a little bit closer to Ladislav's position right now. Daniel Ryan as well, having a bit of a recovery, starting to challenge, and I think using the rejoining LMP2 to a little bit of advantage as they try to scythe their way through the field here. In on Fleischman here and look for a chance. Look like Fleischman's going aggressive onto Madame Mimsman. Say same place as a lap prior, but this time coming out a bit stronger. Done from all of the drivers involved here. Looks like Fleischman has been able to secure the position, but again the Ferrari gets a much better bus stop chicane exit, and that could be the difference between the positions as we head into turns 1 and 2. The Ferrari tucking in behind the Aston Martin as we roll our way through onto the next lap. Meanwhile, Kevin and Angela are going to be having a bit of a fight of their own, taking the place of Bernard, who has in fact DNF'd, retired out in the pit lane. So our second DNF of the session today. following Andy Anderson's tough crash. You can see the fight between the two is just as sharp as ever. Angela continues to be a strong defensive as we roll our way into the infield. And you can see here is where one of the nuances of multi-class racing comes into play, as they're having to work their way around the GT3 field, and having to do so safely and add an extra dimension of either difficulty or strategy depending on how you play it. I mean, Angela, for example, you could use those GT3 cars by having them and passing them at such opportune or inopportune spots. You can force them to block apexes, because remember, it's the faster car's job to get around, not the other way around. The slower car does not necessarily have to yield for you, because one can argue that creates unpredictability. While you can, out of being a good sport, it is the faster car's responsibility to get around the slower cars in a safe manner, per the FIA rules. So you do see that a lot of the drivers in the GT3s aren't really budging much, and you can see that they are continuing their fights while LMP2 cars are still scything their way through. A little bit of a squeeze there, as you can see. They go side by side, and this is exactly what we mean. The number 48, that is going to be none other than Kevin, is trying to get round and can't, and that is the kind of inopportune positioning that is perfect for someone like Angela. You can see they've built up a substantial gap, about 2.3 seconds, just using the track environment alone. Pedro's going to get an overtake, as well as Field Duty is going to make their way down on the inside of turn 2. More of the LMP2s just trying to make their way around the GT3 grid, while retaining some of the defenses. The number 8 pokes the nose in on the inside. Careful, bit of contact, tiny amount of contact on the rear quarter panel of Steve Worrell there. Just all about the proximity. Looks like Aaron Christensen there has been a bit of an issue, so we are going to wind the clocks back and see exactly what happens. Trying to get his way past, I believe that was Gareth Ronda, firing their way through, and oh, yep, just a little bit too much on the rear axle, and making contact with Pedro Costa as well. Severe contact of that. Does not look like either driver is going to come out perfectly unscathed from that one. You see, here is Christensen trying to close in and get back past Costa following their altercation. All fastest laps coming out across the field. Worth mentioning as well that it may come time to Pitsu for the GT3s. We're seeing them on average display about 30% of their energy reserves, meaning that we will have a bit of a strategic switch up. Looks like Worrell and Duty are going to have a bit of an altercation between themselves, as contact was seemingly made. Let's actually wind those clocks back a little bit here. Here you can see there is Phil starting around the outside, contact with the side of Steve, and sort of forcing himself wide. I think taking a bit of a hard cut in was a bit too much to ask for there, so at the end of the day, Phil is going to be retreating to about half a second and then reinitiating the attack at a later point. This stage of the game, folks, this is where we do see a strategy take a bit more of a front position rather than on-track proximity. We just cut over to Martin Lewis right as Dov Myers goes into the pit box. Maybe the LMP2s also looking to try and get a nominal pit stop around the halfway mark of the race session. we go. Should be fixed. Yes, where were we? Looks like we have the LMP2s en masse, in fact, getting a pit stop, folks. You can see a bit of rotation coming in as there is the number 48 there. Is Kevin just leaving the pits now, but mass exodus into the pit lane for LMP2, and the GT3s will probably be following just a few laps after. They're averaging about 6 to 7% of fuel usage per lap of energy usage. So I would not be surprised if we see them coming in 3 laps time in perfect unison. See Daniel Ryan on the back of Madame Mims Man, as Fleischmann has already got the overtake and has been able to commit a pretty large gap at this point. Let's see if other drivers can follow in the same footsteps. About 20% remaining energy, as the majority of LMP2s are either coming out or all going into the pits. You see Martin Lewis, previously race leader, that is going to be him into the pits, and that means is Dov Myers going to get a bit of a resurgence on the order. Unfortunately, it's not a good day if your name is Aaron Christensen, because he has yet another penalty to his name, along with Denise Pope. This time it's a stop-and-go 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Just can't catch a break, Christensen, it seems. And that is unfortunately going to put him in very dire straits when it comes to the championship. There is a non-zero chance that Christensen will be knocked out of the top 3 if this is how his performance is going to go. There is a, as we say, non-zero chance. The Dov Myers just coming out the outside there. That is going to be him rotating very neatly through and retaking the lead of this race. The LMP2 class here today. Fabian has done very well meanwhile, and I gotta say, has kept things very quiet, kept to himself to keep his lead throughout the course of the race so far. One thing I will have to make a point of, though, is that he has used more virtual energy per lap. He has used more fuel, and about 0.5% difference. Next closest competitor, Gellert, 2.3 seconds away, but 0.5% fuel less. So we're looking at about a 4% difference, which could add up to a lap's worth of gap in terms of fuel time. One could stretch for a lap longer than the other, and that could be a serious compromise. Third stop-and-go penalty being dished out, and this time to Aldin Bolic for another speeding infraction in the pit lane. Looks like Aaron Christensen and Denise Pope are going to be quickly taking those. And it has got to the point, unfortunately, where the LMP2s are now being overtaken by the GT3s. Granted, they haven't taken their pit stops yet, but it does stand to reason that they are in a little bit of trouble. You can see here, bit of energy readout for the GT3s here, as we go on to full scale for the GT3s right now. The Costa has not long come out of the pits. He is going to be naturally fully fueled, but the rest of the field is going to be either going into the pits very shortly or is coming out. For example, Christensen and Pope are coming out, but we will soon see the rest of the GT3 field doing much of the same. There is Mason re-energizing his car. That's going to be quickly getting himself into a position he needs. Looks like about 85% is going to be what carries the drivers to the end of the race here. See, that is what Costa has gone with. And Mason looks to be getting a little bit more in the tank there for himself. Daniel Ryan is going to use that sort of last hurrah, that last push. Go for a bit of an attack on P7. Adams Mims Man in the Ferrari. Bit of a last parting shot before they all go into the pits, I imagine. Pressure is up, and the field is still going to be just as tense going in and out of the pit lane. Freshly approaching the pit window, and Fabian is going to be the first one to take the plunge, as Mark Gellert, using that advantage, is going to go out for a lap longer. He's going to push the limits here, folks. There may have to be a little bit of Lyco because he is still within that danger zone. There may be about 1% fuel left by the time he gets to the start-finish line. But he's going to use that extra lap. He's going to take that risk. Whoa, what happened to Worrell's car? What has gone on here? Okay, we need to see exactly what happened, because you don't get your car in a state like that through nothing. And, ooh, major contact, major collision. Hard slam into the tyre wall. I'm amazed that he is still moving. I'm amazed that that chassis is still recognizable. Let's look at it from Phil's perspective, because he was completely caught unawares. I mean, what do you even say? What do you even say? So this is from, say, Worrell's perspective one more time. And yeah, so how is Phil? How is Phil doing in all of this? He's had to return to the pit lane, but he does seem to be like he actually managed to make it in one. Worrell's actually still moving. Now, I am seriously concerned, but also seriously impressed. It's like, yeah, there is a yellow flag for Sector 3. Completely understandable, given that you have a half shell of a car currently limping its way, or attempting to limp its way onto the pit, or back onto the racing surface. Worrell, I admire your commitment. You are still in the car. But if I were you, I think that would be time called. Looks like we did also see, for Adam Burks, a bit of an issue before his retirement. So let's wind back the clocks and see what happened with Burks here. So this was a multi-overtake. So you can briefly take a look. So this was, say, Burks being overtaken on the side, and then Worrell has made our 4th DNF of the night. I gotta say, I've seen a lot of crashes in LMU and in this series. I have not seen a crash as brutal as that, as instantaneous as that, because, heck, I'm not even in the driver's seat, and I'm scared. I would be heart in my chest. Imagine if you were running that in VR. If you're running that in VR, then that is that is literally heart in your mouth stuff. You feel the impact in your soul, even if you don't feel it physically, unless you got a motion rig, in which case, wow, all right, money, lots of money. But wow, if you don't feel that, then there's something wrong with you. All I'm gonna say. Absolutely catastrophic crash from Worrell, and I'm impressed that Phil has been able to make it back out into the track in a semblance of good condition. Although it does seem like he has hemorrhaged a lot of time as a result of that extra pit stop needed. I think he's kind of taken it in stride and been able to somewhat incorporate it into his strategy. So minimal time losses. Despite the major impacts that he suffered, I think Steve's car absorbed it all. I think his car was the one to take the brunt. Now, there has been some unfortunate developments for a certain Jeff Fleischman, as they did receive a stop-and-go 10 seconds for, you guessed it, speeding in the pit lane. So try as one might, and great progress one might make, but that's not going to stop the ire of the stewards. If you're driving unsafely, you will be penalised for it, and that is that. So he's going to have to come in and serve that one. And if I had any advice for him, I'd say serve it soon, because then you'd get a bit of a lay of the land, and hopefully you come out in a bit of space. Looks like we could have a potential battle for the lead of GT3 meanwhile. And we will check back with the LMP2s momentarily, but of course we will just check in with the standings in between. But you can see right here, Gellert and Sodka, they're going for it. Post pit stop, Gellert has a lot more energy in the tank, so he has a lot more with which he can push with. He's going to try and exercise that a little bit as he goes around the outside. Doesn't quite have the room to make it happen, but it's still going to be a statement of intent. I think that statement of intent is pretty clear. I want to get by you, and I want to take your position. If I'm running if I'm also running on a cheaper fuel budget, then that is going to be a very good sign. Looks like we're going to see Lawrence Barrett into the pit lane here, folks. So they're going back in now. And with that, that should, barring the penalty for Fleischmann here, that should, fingers crossed, be all of the required pit stops for the session. So at this point, it's going to be racing on merit and racing on pure pace and push. We'll see here, this is going to be Fleischmann approaching into the bus stop. And rotating pretty neatly through a little bit of dab of the brake to get the car rotated through a little bit more. Apologies, camera hiccup. The feeling into the corners very neatly, very nicely. Gellert and Sodka. Looks like they're going to be the battle of the session thus far. Fleischmann is going to take his stop-and-go penalty. And with just shy of 20 minutes left to go, things are looking very interesting for this championship, folks. Let me tell you that. Gellert being on P2's back, and with no Conor Lynch in sight, this should be a done deal. Nathan Clark is in P4 right now, so while he will get good points, he is not in the same hemisphere in terms of points right now. There is a 25-point gap between Lynch and Clark, so this is Gellert's race to lose. This is his race to lose, ladies and gentlemen, and I think at this point, he really just ought to give it all he has, if nothing, for the sake of the sport. Give it your best, because that's what racing is about. Likewise, you look at the LMP2 fields, and you can see Dov Myers 7 seconds clear of Martin Lewis. At the same time, though, Martin Lewis is 22 points clear of Lindell. And Lindell, remember, is not on track, meaning his next closest competitor, Aaron Christensen, is 31 points away. And, well, we know how Christensen is doing in that he has DNF'd. That is great. We have another DNF, unfortunate to say, folks. So, Christensen, following his poor spell of luck, I think made the judgment call, and with that, that is going to be 5 retirees out of the session. We had Anderson's crash, we had Bernard's issues, we had Burke's as well having issues, and unfortunately, say there's Lawrence Barrett we cut over to just in time to see him drop the car off the side of the infield. And then we had, of course, Worrell's very serious incident on the Christensen's continued struggles on the course. Did have a couple of yellow flags before he ultimately bowed out of the race, but he did still push, and for that he has my respect, because he did still get the fastest lap of the session, yet to be beaten by anyone who remains. We are going to see, and in fact we're going to wind the clocks back a bit, because we had an overtake on the infield section for Gellert and Sodka. So Gellert is in the lead of the session now. We had that spin, of course, coming from Lawrence, and that allowed, where the evasive action had to be taken by Fabian, that allowed him to get the position away from the lead Porsche. Now, Fabian is in a very precarious position. And I don't say that because he is going to lose, not necessarily. In fact, he's in a prime position to go back on the lead. What I mean is that he is down on fuel. Gellert has by and large been better at managing his fuel load, hence why he was able to go for a lap longer before he had to pit compared to the lead previous. Now I think that there will be a bit of struggle towards the end of the race. We'll see these two potentially push each other, and we will see them really give their best, but at the end of it all, the question then becomes who has the lasting power. If he gets the position out on track, what's to say that Lyco doesn't take it back away from him? It's these kind of strategic decisions that the drivers need to make a judgment call upon. And if I was in the hot seat, I don't know, I think about maybe using my opponent to play a little bit more conservatively in the mid-game. And then in the final 5 minutes, that's with the budget of energy that you have, really start to turn up the wick. You see there is Angela, P3 for LMP2, making the way through the slower traffic and doing so very smoothly. That's the kind of on-track sportsmanship behaviour we want to see. There's the number 77, I think that is Lawrence there. But the one thing defining the LMP2 grid right now is very large track gaps. You have 21 seconds between Dov and Martin. You have... Wait, in fact, to say that's quite the gap. Something has happened to Martin. That is not looking good for him at all. Like Angela has quickly taken advantage here. So Martin is struggling for whatever reason and is practically limping the car. We're trying to get a bit of a trace on what happened to Martin Lewis, as he is going to limp into the pit lane. Angela's going to lose it coming into the infield. And Martin Lewis, what happened to you to lose so much time? I think there may have been a Lyco issue, or say maybe the fuel kind of issue, because very uncharacteristic to drop so much pace so quickly like that and practically coast down the inside. Very concerned by that. Here we go. So, with just over 10 minutes left to go, folks, the field is very much split if you're in the LMP2 class, with the closest gap being 1.9 seconds, and that is going to be between Denise and Lawrence. But saying that, looks like there is a pretty serious issue coming from Martin Lewis. Again, we said this earlier, this is his race to lose, but I didn't take that as a challenge. He's having a serious issue with his car because he's been in the pits for a while now. I hope he gets it rectified, whatever has transpired, because he's now yielded all the way to the back of the LMP2 grid. An unfortunate development, as the field has quickly converged in terms of the GT3s, as the lead fight is back on. There's going to be Fabian taking a bit of a wide line, a little bit too deep there in turns 1 and 2. Not quite giving himself the best opportunity for an attack on the lead. Mark is going to have quite the advantage as a defender. He is going to have quite the advantageous position right here. And while we do still have enough time in the session for a move to be made, time is running out, and time is running out quite significantly. He's trying to hold on to the gap, and so far doing relatively well at such gap holding, but he's not really within the range he needs to be to make moves and really sort of strike any meaningful pressure. on his opponent. Contrast that with Daniel Ryan right now, who has, yeah, just wanted to have a quick look at the grass and the trees. But he is keeping the proximity in a bit of a better way, and this is going to mean, as we look at the back of Madame Mimsman, they may be within that slipstream range as we come to the other side of the bus stop chicane. Right there, exactly as we discussed. There is going to be the Porsche really tailing onto the back of the Ferrari here. Daniel Ryan chomping at the bit for the attack, out the overtake. Is it going to happen? He takes an outside line going into turns 1 and 2, but I think has to bow out. He doesn't get the room to breathe, and as a result, he doesn't get the room to make the overtake. Let's check in with our lead duo. Meanwhile, as we have a bit of a development in that Dov Myers has jumped into the pit lane also. Martin Lewis has finally come out, but he's not looking in any meaningfully good shape as he's 40 seconds down from Denise. The Dov Myers into the pit lane is a bit of a development. Maybe he's just outpaced himself on his resources. The way that's going to be a death blow to the lead that he had accumulated all of this time. You can see he is exiting now, but wait, Kevin is going in as well. And Angela is going to be the one to take the lead in the end. But quickly taking a bit of a different turn, folks. Quite a different turn indeed. Like a two-stopper is the only viable for the leaders, but where does that leave the rest? Going for the attack, going for the angle, and again, it's that outside line which is so easily boxed out. If you can get on the inside, that serves you very well. The Kevin and Mihal, yeah, they're both going to be heading in. Dov Myers has returned to the track with a 20-second deficit. And looking further, there's Daniel Ryan as well, once again challenging onto the back of Madame Mimsman. Again, going to be teeing up to the outside, or are they? Going for the switch, but again, just doesn't have the nose in enough to be able to take ownership of the corner. And that must be such a frustrating feeling for the drivers there. It's just not being able to take that ownership of the corner, not being able to nose in. That is a big old problem. If you want to get that position, you need to have enough alongside to where if you do decide to get aggressive, you have the right to hold your space. You can see here, this might be the chance to go for it. Maybe going for a bit of a switch back out of the chicane, prioritizing the exit, but getting boxed out again. That is going to be the real question, the real trouble for these drivers right now. We're just over 5 minutes away from the end, and it's looking like a good race for everyone involved. You can see the field is starting to converge in certain places, and the lead is maybe about to change over. Sudka has this. He just needs to commit to the line, and he's going to get bumped on the edge, in fact. He's going to get a bit of contact on the outside. He's going to quickly switch back. Maybe this is a sign that the gloves are off. And yeah, no, I'm not waiting around anymore. Mark Gellert is going to be on the defensive still, holding the apex of the corner, forcing Fabian to take a lighter line around the outside. Once again, he is behind. I got to ask, what is going on between these two? I can't peel my eyes away, because it just seems like there is no dull moment between these two Porsches. Big slide, big fishtail. Luckily, Fabian catches it, but looks like there might have been an altercation as well between another of the LMP2s. Here is Angela spinning, losing the car, making contact with, I believe that is going to be the 48 of Kevin. But yeah, the two of them quickly coming together. Fabian has dropped by a second and a half now, as Mark Gellert has got the space to basically bring this one home. We do have a bit of a challenge in the form of Angela actually being quite close to Kevin. Of course, that contact between them isn't going to be helping things, but they are still within about a second. So we'll keep an eye on these two as things progress. Heading into the bus stop chicane, suboptimal line for Angela due to the GT3 on the inside. Now quickly does it, and they'll be able to get a good exit and start to close that gap. Looks like they managed to do so, as they are chipping away at time between themselves and going. Closing a little bit, but then losing time all the same again. Catching the tailwind of another LMP2 car. Gareth Ronda lost the car, and looks like the yellow flag has been called for him as he goes through the bus stop chicane, bumping on those sausage curbs, and that is exactly what we mean in motion right there. Those sausage curbs are lethal. Luckily, jumping on the brakes before he gets into the critical path of those rejoining on the oval. Although could have done it a little bit earlier, I think. Either way, he is back in on the racetrack. But that was a very sketchy moment. Down in P12 right now for the GT3s. Madame Miemsman making a mistake earlier, dropping 2 positions. Daniel Ryan and Cal Mason managed to overtake. Looks like the Ferrari might have a bit of a chip on their shoulder going into these last couple of minutes. 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That's going to equate to about 2 laps left, ladies and gentlemen. See that Dob Myers is currently on a run through the infield, but this is probably going to equate to about 2 more laps before time is called. Up around the outside, Angela's going for a move on Kevin, or are they a little bit wide there? You got Denise as well behind, just sort of tailing the battle here. A little bit of GT3 traffic may throw a spanner in the works for either of them. A bit of a wide run there. That is going to be Nathan Clark, I think, yielding. Both cars just looking for a bit of an opportunity to get around, say, stop and go 100 seconds. Pedro Costa. I don't even know what to say to that, folks. Just, I mean, Pedro, that is a heck of a penalty to receive. A heck of a penalty to receive there. You can see he's bowing out to the inside of the course now. 100 seconds stop and go. That might as well just be an instant go to back of grid card. That might as well be what that says. Because that is a death nail to any kind of competition that you've got left in these remaining minutes. Martin Lewis is losing the car out of turn 2. That is not looking good for him. Again, championship leader having a bit of a dud final round. It's not looking too hot for him right now. Don't worry. Spontaneous teleportations to the Shadow Realm is sometimes a side effect of being at Daytona. It is the gods trying to smite us down where they stand. But as we get to the end of time, folks, the time has struck nil. And with that, one driver must be crowned. And that driver to be crowned is going to be none other than Dov Myers. Currently 4th place in the championship, but I wouldn't be surprised if that changes after this run. Potential podium holder of the championship order, but what a showing from the number 62, and a very impressive result. Finally getting a win in their last hurrah of the season, Dov Myers take a bow as they win for LMP2 here today. Not too distant behind, but say Kevin and Angela are going to be 2nd and 3rd in this whole thing. The checkered flag has been called, of course, and that is going to be the chance for the rest of our field to start filtering through. So there's going to be Kevin and Angela rolling their way to the line. Okay, of course, we have Dov first. Kevin is going to come through in 2nd place. The number 48 crosses the line. And then we have Angela Scotty in 3rd place, the number 34. Looking over to the GT3s, though, Mark Gellert is going to be the driver to take your checkered flag for the GT3 class and take the win ahead of P1 starter, and unfortunately lost the solo battle for the top, but still put up a remarkable fight. That is P2 for Fabian Sodke. And I believe with that, we do have Mark Gellert as the confirmed champion of the GT3 class. Martin Lewis, despite the upset, I do think has enough of a deficit, or enough of an advantage, sorry, combined with the lack of competitors, to still take the win of the championship for LMP2s. Vladislav is going to be taking that 3rd place spot, but you can see donuts in quick succession from the field, and a very impressive field result all round. Last one to come through to the line, it's going to be Cal Mason, and then that is finito for our field here today. Let's take a look and take a full shot of the standings as everyone celebrates. The LMP2 first is Dov, Kevin and Scotty, along with Mihai and Lawrence Barrett completing your top 5. Last 3 of our finishers is going to be Arden Bulich, Martin Lewis and Denise Pope, as we unfortunately did not get to see the light of day for some of the LMP2s, that being Aaron Christensen, Bernard Bendel and Tom Osborne, along with Alexander Bielek and Lindell Harry. Going over to the GT3s, though, it's Mark Gellert and Fabian Sodke along with Vladislav Bobzik in your top 3, with your top 5 being completed by Nathan Clark and Dave Beckett. Looking to the rest of the field, you have Daniel Ryan, Madame Mimsman, Peter Szabo, Cal Mason, Becky, Eli Clark, and Roger Clark, as well as Gareth Ronda, Jeff Fleischman, Phil Doody, and Pedro M. Costa to finish. Unfortunately, we did not see the end for Steve Worrell, Adam Burks, and then Andy Anderson, with David Miser not joining us on the track today. And that is that, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a heck of a ride. It's been a heck of a season. And it's been a heck of an honor to be alongside you all for it. But, as we said, all good things must come to an end. And it has come to the end of Season 5 of Flat Out Thursdays for Ada here today. Of course, to all of the racers here today, there is going to be feedback forms going out in order to shape future seasons and championships, so be sure to get in there if you are an active racer or active participant, because that is going to be, of course, very important to shape the future of what we do here at Ada. And if you've been watching, all I can say is thank you. There's really not any other statements I could make, any other words I could utter that really do it justice other than a very simple thank you. Thank you to everyone who has supported us throughout this season. Thank you to everyone who has been either active in the chat or active in the stream, or otherwise just on the sidelines enjoying the show. We wouldn't be here without you. So we hope that you will join us for future events in Ada's life cycle. And if you want to catch anything, be sure to keep it here on the streams. Give it a like if you do enjoy, and with that all being said, jump on our website, jump in the Discord, get involved, and we will hopefully see you again very soon. Take care, folks. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. Hope you cool down if you're where we are and it's a bit too warm. Currently reading 37 degrees in this room right now. So I'm going to go and cool off. And I hope you do too. Stay safe and stay well, folks. Thank you, and goodbye.